Thank you and good evening. Gosh, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and also thank you for inviting me to be with you all tonight. It's a great privilege and an honor. It's always great to drop into Washington, D.C. if you can get through the traffic, as you know. But we were able to make it, and we're glad to be here. And certainly want to thank all of you all for being here tonight to support advocacy against gun violence and to support advocacy for gun safety. This is a team approach, as Josh just said. This is not something that any one person can do by themselves. We all have to work together. And working together, we will make strides. We have a lot more work to do, as Josh said. I know there are a lot of folks in the audience tonight that have been very close to the tragedies that a lot of us have witnessed over the years. It's great to see Andy and Barbara Parker. I'm always amazed and admire you all so much for what you've done in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And you know, it's good to see people that somehow out of tragedy, they really try to turn it around and make something good happen from that. And certainly a friend of mine over the years has been Laurie Haas, and I know you all know Laurie, and I know you know her story, but the courageous work that she has done throughout the Commonwealth and throughout this country to make our communities and our streets and our colleges and our universities safer. I just admire you so much, Laurie, so thank you for being a friend, and thank you for all the work you've done. I bring greetings to you tonight from the Eastern Shore of Virginia, as Josh said. Now, the Eastern Shore, for those of you all aren't familiar with it, is that little piece of Virginia that's not connected to the rest of the state. And oftentimes, as we see maps of Virginia, where they leave the Eastern Shore off, and we get very defensive. As a matter of fact, last night, just believe it or not, the debate in Farmville, some of the banners that they had hanging promoting Longwood University, they left the Eastern Shore off, but we took care of that. But the reason I tell you that, I have somewhat of a unique perspective on gun violence. The Eastern Shore is very conservative. It's very rural. There are a lot of hunters on the Eastern Shore, and I grew up around hunters and guns. I then left the Eastern Shore and went to the Virginia Military Institute, which is also tends to be a fairly conservative college in Lexington, Virginia. And you know, one of the first things they did at VMI was they issued all of the cadets an M14. And thankfully, if anybody's ever heard about the rat year at VMI, that's your freshman year, thankfully they didn't put firing pins in those M14. So that was a good thing at VMI. When I graduated from VMI, I took a commission in the United States Army. I did my training in pediatrics and then neurology, and then as soon as I finished, Desert Storm kicked off. So I took care of wounded soldiers during Desert Storm, and I know all too well what assault weapons do to human beings. And I can tell you that I feel very strongly, and I suspect agree with a lot of people in this room and in our society, but we do not need assault weapons on our streets in this country. And I have had experience, as you might imagine, as a child neurologist, taking care of children and their families, victims of gun violence. Imagine this story. I just want to share a story with you. Imagine this phone call that I received not very long ago, a few months ago. I started taking care of a young lady at age 3. I've been doing this for a little while. And she came in to see me because she had seizures, and we worked over the years to treat her seizures, get them under control so that she could have a normal life. And she turned into a beautiful young teenager, became 20 and met a man that she thought was the love of her life, and got married and had a 5-month-old child. And her husband had some difficulties with anger management. And one evening in Newport News, he was visiting a neighbor, and she texted him and said, "Can you please come home? it's getting late. And he came home, and they had some words, and he pulled out a revolver and shot her dead in front of her 5-month-old. And her mother called me that night early in the morning, and we just were friends, and she was a beautiful young woman and a beautiful family. And I can tell you that that was one of the most difficult phone calls that I ever received. And so we all need to work together to do all we can to prevent that from happening to another person. And you know, another thing that I would tell you as a pediatric